We know that walking with teens through trauma is one of the most difficult things you are asked to do right now. So, to help us in that, we've asked John Dailey to join us. John is the director of the Yellowstone Boys and Girls Club, a residential treatment center outside of Billings, Montana, and an expert in this field.
Happy New Year, Young Life. My name is John Dailey. I'm a Young Life volunteer out in Billings, Montana. My job is I work at a residential treatment center for children, and I've been doing this for the last 20 years. I'm going to be talking to you today about how to begin working with youth who've experienced trauma. Our focus today is going to be on dealing with anxiety, loneliness, and fear in the age of COVID. We've all been struggling to restore some of those connections that we've lost due to having to social distance and be apart from others. And I thought it might be helpful for us to kind of talk a little bit about how we can go about rebuilding connection in this time and dealing with trauma. Trauma is something that I spend a lot of time working with kids on. And I think that it might be important for us to begin this topic talking a little bit about what trauma is and what it does. Trauma is something that impacts the brain and actually can rewire the brain so that the brain operates differently than God intended it to. Trauma impacts our ability to connect with others, and it impacts our ability to connect with God, and it impacts our ability to synchronize our thoughts and our moods with our identity. And I want to talk to you today a little bit about that a little more in detail. I think that many of us are familiar with the different types of trauma that occur. We're probably more familiar with trauma B, which is the bad things that happen to us. The bad things are things like the car accident, the murder, rape, molestation, humiliation, betrayal, change of a core belief. Those are those things that we're very much familiar with because they impact our system and change us fundamentally at our core. It's this huge and almost intense experience that causes us to reimagine and rethink about how we interact with the world around us. And not many of us are familiar with the trauma A, however, but trauma A is just as detrimental as trauma B. Trauma A is the absence of the good things that we need in order to grow and develop into the type of people that God's created us to be. Trauma A is that abandonment. Trauma A is the not having a core group of friends that we can connect with or belong to. Trauma A is that rejection, that you're not loved or wanted. And trauma A can deeply impact the way that we develop, the way that we think, and the way that we connect with other people. The main symptom of trauma is the thing we're going to talk about next. And the main symptom of trauma is our inability to connect with other people. Trauma rewires our brain, and our brain begins to think differently about things. We experience things differently. And one of the things that happens is in that experience of trauma, we disconnect from other people. We can't connect with others because we've been hurt and we need to put our guard up and we need to protect ourselves from some of those other things out there that we view as threats. Our inability to connect with other people, our inability to truly find relationship and joy and connection is significantly hindered by our traumas. The brain is sensitive to trauma, and one of the things that we're observing with trauma and doing some research on post-traumatic stress disorder, and that's the clinical term for people who have experienced trauma. And one of the things that we're realizing from this is that there are two main parts of the brain that are impacted by trauma. The first part of the brain that's impacted is the part called the amygdala. The amygdala is responsible for activating or turning on when we sense that a threat is present. When we sense that danger is present, the amygdala turns on, and resources that we would normally direct to our prefrontal cortex, or this front part of our brain, to problem solve, to think relationally, to connect, gets hindered, and the brain starts redirecting resources and energy to the limbic system of our brain, and that's where our emotions dwell. Our limbic system is responsible for reacting to the threat that we sense around us. And when that amygdala is on, the first casualty of this redirection of resources is our ability to stay engaged or connected with other people. The way to think about this is as if we have these attachment lights that turn on when we are wanting to connect to others. So when we want to connect to others, we turn these attachment lights on, and we're able to connect. Now, in order for that to happen, we have to have our lights on, and other people have to have their lights on, and then we connect to other people by having our lights on and their lights on. When trauma occurs, or we're experiencing a threat, we turn off our lights, and we are unable to connect with others, despite the fact that they may be willing or able to connect with us. And what happens then is our relationships are significantly impacted. So what does this mean? Well, this means that when others want to connect to us, we're unavailable because we sense that a threat is present, and we disconnect from others. There are also times in which other people don't want to connect with us, and that can trigger that amygdala to go off, and our lights turn off too. The problem with this is that when our lights are off, we're unable to connect not only from other people, but we're unable to connect with God, and we're unable to connect with ourselves, with our identity and who we are. And that causes us to feel additional pain in our lives and strife. The other part of our brain that is significantly impacted due to trauma is the part of our brain called the hippocampus. Now, the hippocampus is responsible for organizing and storing our memories. When trauma impacts this part of the brain, the hippocampus shrinks, and it doesn't become very good at placing memories and experiences and emotions in its proper place in our mind. And so what happens there is that things that might have happened to us 30 years ago, our brain recalls them as if they happened 30 minutes ago or 30 seconds ago. And we are unable to put the appropriate amount of distance between us and something that just happened. The other thing that happens too is that the hippocampus is able to recall other emotions that we've experienced that are similar to the emotion that we're currently experiencing. What that means then is that if we are experiencing some type of loss or depression or anxiety, it's easier for us to recall and remember all of those other times in our life in which we've also felt loss and anxiety, or we're able to remember all of those times in which we were afraid. And they rapidly come back to us, sometimes almost as an intrusive thought. We don't have to think about thinking it. We just automatically, it pops into our brain. Stuff that we might not have even thought of for years. Our brain recalls it just as if it just happened to us. And this then becomes part of the problem, because we get caught into the cycle in which we experience something that's traumatic, and our brain remembers all those other times in which we experienced a similar emotion, and we become re-traumatized all over again. And our ability to reconnect or turn our attachment lights back on becomes significantly diminished, to the point where it's almost impossible for us to connect with other people because we don't feel safe. So in order to impact this, one of the things that we have to do is we have to think a little bit about how we can get those attachment lights to reactivate or turn back on. And one of the things that we have to think about is how significant is our disconnection. I have some questions here. This is called a relational connection test. There's 6 questions. And if you were to answer yes to any of these questions, what it would tell you is that your attachment lights are turned off. And so the number one question is, if I just want to make a person or problem or feeling go away, and I can answer yes to this, my attachment lights are probably turned off. If I don't want to listen to what others feel or say, then my attachment lights are probably turned off. If my mind is locked on to something upsetting, then again, my attachment lights are probably turned off. If I don't want to be connected to someone who I usually enjoy their company or like to be connected with, then my attachment lights are probably turned off. If I just want to get away, fight someone, or freeze, then again, probably my attachment lights are turned off. And lastly, if I more aggressively interrogate, judge, or try to fix others, it's likely that my attachment lights are turned off. If in any of these situations occur, and you can answer yes to any of these 6 questions, more than likely your attachment lights are turned off and you're experiencing a connection problem. The best way to try and reconnect or reestablish those connections with God, with yourself, with other people, is to quiet and calm the amygdala, that part of our brain that assesses danger and risk, and get that to tone itself down a little bit so that we can reestablish or reconnect others in relationship. I have a quick video that I'd like to show you. It's only a couple seconds or a couple minutes long, and then we're going to talk about this.
I want to play? No. Please? No. Please! No, it's mine. Stop.
Stop making that face. Do you want it to stay stuck like that?
Whatever.
And now for the weather. Thank you, Jim. Quite a sunny day. Later on, we're going to have wind.
I want to play? No. Please? No. Please! No, it's mine. Stop.
Stop making that face. Do you want it to stay stuck like that?
Whatever.
And now for the weather. Thank you, Jim. Quite a sunny day. Later on, we're going to have winds coming in from opposite directions.
Like your lips.
You think you're funny?
Relax, chill.
I saw you
Don't
funny,
forget
right?
life.
Hey, dude, you look like a Snapchat filter.
Huh, real funny. Excuse me? Hey, do you have the time?
It's 2 o'clock.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Your face.
Your face.
Did you not listen to your parents either?
No, I didn't listen either.
Do you want to get out of here?
Yeah.
Like a song on the radio, out on the patio, we'll find a dream to seize. So we should make me feel when I
Okay, ready?
Yeah.
I can feel it to my bones.
Okay, let's do a funny face.
It's so nice out.
Watch where you're going, man.
Did you just bump into me?
You just bumped into me, my friend.
What did you say?
Oh, no.
No. No. Hey. Where are you going? I thought we had something.
I'm good. You're just not my type, you know?
I still got it!
Bye. Sorry.
Come back! Hey.
You didn't listen to your parents either?
No.
You want to get out of here?
Yeah. No! Hey!
what we learned from this video clip is that connection that disconnection is some of the deepest trauma or deepest pain that people can possibly experience. I'd like to take a look at Genesis 1:26 and 27. It says, "Then God said, 'Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over the livestock, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth.' So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him, male and female, he created them." Here's what this means. God intended us to live lives that are fully relational and connected to others. We're not supposed to be living in isolation. We're not intended to live disconnected lives from either God or from each other. That he created us for connection, and that there's a purpose for us. That we are to live in community. And when trauma occurs in our lives, and trauma could just easily be replaced with the word sin. When sin enters our lives, it disconnects us from being with each other and being who we truly are. And what we need then we need tools and we need skills in order to reconnect with other people so that we can deal with that sin problem, and we can turn our brains back to connection and realign them to being within relationship with God and with other people. Later on in Genesis, it says that it's not good for man to be alone, and he makes a suitable helper for him. And then it also says in Genesis that the man and wife, Adam and Eve, used to walk in the garden with the Lord, meaning that they were in community with him, meaning that they spent time walking and being together in relationship, and that relationships are important. Connection is important. When we experience trauma, just like with Adam and Eve in this verse, where they sinned and then they hide from God, they can't bear to be in relationship, in connection with God, because sin gets in the way. This trauma rewires our brain, and we begin to think differently about things. Instead of going to God with our relationship problems, we hide from him, or we try to create distance between us and him. And it further extends this pain beyond us and into our identities, because we lose sight of who we are and who we've been created to be when trauma enters into our world. So how do we begin to deal with sin, deal with trauma? Well, there are 5 keys to building resilience. The first key is self-awareness, staying true to you. One of the things that happens is that when we experience trauma and that amygdala kicks on, we act not like ourselves. We have a pain-based response, meaning that we respond to this pain that we feel from being disconnected with others by putting up these defenses and treating other people as threats. We might say hurtful things to them. We might, push people away because we're afraid of that connection. We're afraid of having that connection, but we're also afraid of losing that connection. We know what it's like to lose and experience this loss, and so we want to protect ourselves from connecting to others by building these walls up around us so that we don't have to connect with others, so that we don't have to feel that or experience that pain of disconnection. And one of the things that we have to realize is that in order to stay who we are, we need relationships. We need people to connect with. We need others to connect with us and be people in our life that can call us on the stuff that we need to be called on. We need people to be truthful to us, to speak truth to us, and we need people to just be able to enjoy our company. Second key to building resilience or bouncing back from trauma is this ability to be mindful. being aware of your ability to form attachments and to seek rest and shalom. We'll talk a little bit more about that specifically in just a second. Mindfulness is our ability to slow things down and seek out that connection, to synchronize the two parts of our brain with the prefrontal cortex and connecting with our identity and who God created us to be. And when we miss the mark, we're not being the person that God created us to be, that we're able to realign that part and reconnect with Him so that we can be who we've truly been. There's also this ability to self-care, to quiet the mind and practice some appreciation. In a moment, I'll teach you how to do some appreciation moments and show you how to reconnect and quiet and calm and soothe the amygdala so that you can turn your attachment lights back on so that you are able to connect with other people. And then the fourth key here is positive relationships, connecting to people who are life-giving, who are life-affirming, people that are good for us to be connected to. Those relationships become immensely important. And then the last key is to seek out our purpose. Find out, why are we here? Who did God create us to be? And seek after those types of things. And this will make sense a little bit more when we talk about the appreciation moment in just a minute. So the first thing, rest and shalom. First thing that we have to do in order to get rest or find rest is we have to practice combat breathing. Combat breathing comes from the military, and it's one of the things that they teach to their snipers. Snipers are people that do long distance shooting, and one of the things that they have to do is every time the heart beats, the entire body pulses, and it can throw off a shot because you're shooting at targets that are so far away. And one of the things that the military did is that they wanted to increase the window in which the body was calm so that it could take a shot in between these heartbeats. And so they teach the snipers how to do combat breathing. And so if you would, breathe with me for just a moment. Take a deep breath in through your nose, hold that breath, and then let that breath out slowly through your mouth. And you're going to do this at a rate of into the nose, 1, 2, 3, hold, 1, 2, 3, 4, out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So breathing in, holding that breath, letting it out slow. If we do this over and over again, one of the things that happens is the body begins to relax. The heart rate starts to slow down, and our body is able to return from our limbic system to our prefrontal cortex, remaining who we are supposed to be, staying true to who we are. The second thing that we do is we learn to quiet the body and rest. One of the things that helps us to remain who we are and to build our resilience to endure trauma, to endure situations in which we are disconnected from others or feeling disconnected, is that we find ways to quiet and rest. And doing that allows us to restore and rejuvenate our body. Now, rest doesn't necessarily mean sleep, okay? But one of the things that happens during sleep is that the brain is able to flush all these chemicals from the brain through sleep. REM sleep restores our natural rhythm to our body, and it also flushes these chemicals, harmful chemicals in the brain that cause the brain to become rewired. And if we can find rest and shalom and peace, one of the things that we can do is we can flush those things from our system. And if we do that, it allows us to stay relational and allows our attachment lights to stay on. We do that by doing a couple things. One is just finding quiet. Sitting in a quiet space in Scripture, Jesus tells us to find that prayer closet, that quiet space where we can be alone and we can seek and connect, try to connect with God's voice. We're listening. We're opening ourselves up to connection with the Father so that we can hear from Him and realign everything that's going on around us with everything that God has in store for us. So finding rest and shalom is just finding that space and that time to quiet and calm our bodies. It may be that your rest or your shalom moment is meditating on a particular verse. I have several verses of scripture in which I try to memorize. And then when I start to feel overwhelmed, I quiet myself, I step aside, I find that quiet space, I close the door, I go into the bathroom if I have that, or my office, or wherever I can be alone, and I just pray this verse over my life. And I ask God to come in and help me find rest and peace in this moment of chaos and strife. And then lastly, one of the things that I do is I practice what I call an appreciation moment. An appreciation moment is this. Appreciation moment is when I quietly go into my memory bank and I search for the last time in which I felt appreciation. And this could be two types of appreciation, where others appreciated me or I appreciated someone else. And what I'll do is I'll close my eyes and I'll look for that moment and I'll find that memory in which I experienced appreciation. And what I'll do is, as I practice my breathing, one of the things that I'll do is I will pay attention to all of the different things in that memory. I'll pay attention to how I felt, who was with me, any textures that might stand out, any senses that might be present. And the other thing that I'll do is I'll pay attention to how did my body feel in that moment. Because when I do that, I remind myself of how I like to feel, and I'm able to recalibrate or reset my body to that time in which I felt appreciation. Now, appreciation is important because appreciation is a time in my life in which I most felt like myself. I most was connected to the purpose that God had for me, meaning that God created me to accomplish something. And when I feel appreciation, what I'm doing is I'm reconnecting or I'm reestablishing how I like to feel or who God created me to be. And when I appreciate others, other people are exhibiting a gift or a talent or an ability in which I would like to have for myself, or an ability in which God created me to exhibit. And so when I see it in others, I'm reminded of who God created me to be. So if I can practice those things, I can stay true to who I am. Now, as I'm working with others, these are skills that I will teach to other kids so that they too can remind themselves of who God created them to be, that they can turn their attachment lights back on and seek meaningful connection with other people. And if I can do that, I can withstand even the most difficult of circumstances. So here's what I'd like for you. I'd like you guys to take a few moments, and you guys will be given some instructions on what you need to do. What I'd like you to think about is, how can I begin to find meaningful connection with other people? Of all these skills that we talked about in the last 30 minutes, and I know you haven't had a lot of time with them, which of these skills would you like to see you use in the future? And of all the relationships that you have, which ones are life-affirming or life-giving to you, and are relationships in which you want to build even stronger into the next year? And lastly, how can you begin to teach these skills to others so that the kids that you work with and the people that you come into contact with can be and stay relationally connected with you and with God? If you would, spend some time discussing this in your small groups or as a large group. And thanks for your time to speak with you. Take care, everybody, and Happy New Year. Bye-bye.